Hello, plant and animal science. We are going to be talking about plant characteristics, more specifically stems and leaves, which are very important parts of a plant, each which have a specific function and a job in order for the plant to survive and be successful. So, first off, again, another review. Why are plants important to us? They do a wide range of things for us. Just a few. They provide food for us to be able to eat. They provide us the ability to have clothes. And they help the environment in many ways. And there's lots of other ways, like medication and breathing and providing oxygen. There's just so much that plants do for us. Now, there's three types of agricultural plants. It's kind of broken into three different categories. The first one's food, is the plants that we actually eat. The fiber is, we talked about what fiber is in more so in an animal standpoint. Fiber is used as clothing, so you'll learn there are plants that we use in order to provide clothes, such as, we'll find out. And then forage. Forage is going to be like grasses and hays in order to feed animals, but also in more horticulture ways. So it's for like the grass lawns that you have for aesthetic or visual beauty for people. So let's keep moving. So food crops, which would be things like corn. Fiber crops would be things like cotton. And then forage crops would be something like hay. Now, in the plant world, there are different lengths of life cycles. So the first one is an annual. Annual are plants that complete their life cycle in 1 year or less. They don't go past that 1 year mark. So they have a relatively short life cycle. They think of plants that do not come back maybe during more than 1 year. Examples would be plants like marigolds, petunias, squash, and corn. Then we have biennials. Well, if you break down that word, bi would be meaning, you got it, 2. So these are plants that complete their life cycle within 2 years. Then these are things like radish, cabbage, onions, mustard, those types of plants. Then we have perennial. I wonder what this one is. These plants live longer than 2 years and do not die after flowering. These actually are what would be considered perennials are permanent. Perennials are permanent. That's how I remember it. So perennials are plants that are permanent plants that maybe that have a very long lifespan. So these are like woody shrubs, trees, and lots of grasses, which are perennials. So leaf retention. So if you think about it, during the fall, what usually happens? All the trees do what? Yeah, they lose their leaves. So there are certain, that's called leaf retention. Now, there are certain trees that you might see around that actually don't lose their leaves at all in the fall. And so that's because they have a different leaf retention. So deciduous plants, they're the ones that drop all their leaves during one part of the year. That's usually when you start seeing the fall and winter times when the leaves are falling. Now, you also have seen evergreen. Well, these here evergreen, you might have heard as like Christmas trees. These are going to be like your pine trees. So the evergreen, if you break it down, it's going to be forever green. And so these plants do not drop their leaves. They have their green foliage all year round. So evergreen, forever green. So semi-deciduous, it's kind of exactly the way you think about it. They lose most or all of their leaves, but they may keep some. It's like they drop half of them. It all depends on the climate that the tree is living in. So we're going to move into tissue systems. Tissue systems, if you think about it, tissue within your body, you have different types of tissues. plants have different tissues too. So you have two specific ones we're going to focus on. The first one is dermal. And when you think of dermal would be like our skin. Now this is, dermal, it's the same thing as for plants. It's the protection from things such as the environment and loss of water. So it's that layer. I think about it on a tree. What would be the dermal tissue of the plant? Yep, it's going to be that bark. That bark on the outside of the tree is going to be that dermal protection. Then we have vascular. Vascular is when we have a vascular system in the human body. It's all of the veins and arteries inside. It's the same for plants. They have a vascular system inside that moves. It moves around hormones and water, nutrients and sugars. That helps move around the plant, just like our veins and arteries moves our blood around our body. So they have both types. And you can see, what would be this picture? That would be dermal. This picture is under a microscope showing the vascular system. So you can see the difference between the two. Stems. So we're going to focus on stems now. So stems are the part of the body, or part of the plant, that serves as an important storage and support, that functions in addition to the primary purpose of like transporting all of the nutrients and water that it needs inside the body or inside the plant. But it has a lot of different functions, and we're going to talk about that. So it supports the stem, or the stem supports the leaves and the branches. It has that allows it to have that upward direction. It holds the plant up. It transports water and solutes, which are like the nutrients, between the roots and the leaves. It is stems in some plants are actually photosynthetic, and we haven't talked about photosynthesis yet. But photosynthesis, sneak preview. What it does is actually creating its own food with the sun. And you kind of may have already heard about that process. And we're going to talk about that in more depth later. But some stems actually photosynthesize. Usually those green stems are photosynthesizing. Now, stems also may store a lot of materials such as water, starch, sugar. It holds on to that energy for the plant to be able to use and grow. In some plants, stems have to become adapted and specialized for functions. And we won't go into too much detail, but those are things like vines. Also, too, when you think about cactus and succulents, they have a different type of system. So we have two different types of stems. We have herbaceous and woody. So herbaceous is the root word herb. When you think of herb, you think of green herbs that we might use for cooking. So these are soft, non-woody, leaf-like color. So they have a green color and texture. Usually they're very pliable, which means it can bend some without snapping. Unlike the woody is kind of a stiff, very brittle. If you were to bend it, it would break and snap. And then it's that wood-like appearance. So you have herbaceous, which would be green and bendy. Woody would be stiff and that stiff wood-like structure. So you can see the difference. What would be herbaceous versus woody? So woody, some trees are actually considered woody stems. And then herbaceous, you'll see these are those green stems that you might see. So parts of a stem, each part of a stem has a job. So we have the node, which is the place on the stem that the leaves originate from. They actually grow from the node. And it's these little, if you look right here, it's those little itty bitty parts of the stem that are kind of built up. It has this bump almost. That is a node. And then the internode is the between the nodes. So node is little bumps on there where leaves grow. Internode's that space between the nodes. Then we have a terminal bud, which is a vegetative growth that actually plants grow upwards. They grow up. So that's where it grows up from. So that's that growth that's happening there. Then we have axillary or lateral buds. This is the bud at the node. So you can see right here, it's the buds at the sides. So lateral is the sides of the terminal bud. And then this is where the growth outward is going to happen. So the terminal bud is going to grow up, lateral buds grow out. Then we have a leaf scar. This is the impression where a leaf used to be, and it leaves a scar on the stem where that petiole used to be, and we'll learn what a petiole is, but it's that stem of the leaf. But that's what that is. So next time you go see a stem, see if you can identify any of those parts. Next, we're going to move into leaf function. So leaves have a very important job. Their job is to photosynthesize. And again, we're going to talk about that, but that's how they make food in order to survive. And then they also allow gas or air exchange. That's essentially how they're breathing, the respiration. It's how they breathe. Protect the vegetative and floral buds. So the leaves provide the shade and protection from elements such as rain, sun beating down and burning it, lots of other ways that it protects the young vegetative buds. Then it helps with water transport, such as transpiration. And then food storage. It holds on to that food while it's growing. It's a very important job. Leaves, these are the parts of the leaves. The tip is, of course, the very top of the leaf. And then we have the midrib. It is that very big vein that you see across the center of the leaf here. Excuse me. Lateral veins, which are those veins that go out away from the side of the midrib, or that vein in the center. The petiole is that little stem that attaches the leaf to the stem. And then the stipules, which are the smaller leaves at the base of the petiole. They're very tiny, but that's just from the growth from the leaf. So there's different types of leaves. There's ones that are simple and compound. Simple is very self-explanatory. The one continuous leaf surface. But then we have compound, which are divided into little leaflets. If you look at this image, this one is one leaf. A compound leaf is, you see that there's little itty bitty leaflets on one leaf, like one stem. And there's some plants that have this you might recognize, but we do primarily have simple leaves. So we have leaf venation. Leaf venation is how the veins are arranged on the blade or on the leaf itself. So there's lots of different kinds. And you can see this image kind of showing the parallel, pinnate, palmate. Parallel would be something like the palm, or palm. Some palm tree leaves are parallel. But there's also major big palms that have that palmate. Pinnate is a very common venation of majority of the plants out there. Leaf surfaces, it's exactly what it is. It is the surface of the leaf. And if you, this one's not too important other than there's lots of different kinds. You have access to this link, but there's hairy, there is smooth, there is rigid, so there's lots of different surfaces of leaves out there. So, there's more. Pubescent, viscid, glossous, glabrous, lots of different terms out there for leaf surfaces. But just so you know that those are out there, but not as important as this next one. So leaf arrangement. Leaf arrangement is how the leaves are arranged on the stem itself. So you'll see that they're not all the same. Some examples would be alternate. Alternate would be it's at a single part of the node, but then opposite are two leaves at each node and are across from the stem from each other. There's whorled, which are kind of surrounded around the stem. So there's tons of different types of arrangements out there. And then lastly, some of you might be thinking, hey Schmitt, well, we looked at those leaf shapes and all those different venations. There's lots of other different kinds out there plants. Like, what about cactus? Or what about succulents? What about those pine needles?